Hello. Really glad to be back in Riga and in TechChill. I saw that last time I was here about 2 years ago. So yeah, I give you a quick overview of what we have been up to at Bolt during that time, and also a bit of my personal journey. So as a founder and entrepreneur, and also in the topic of impact that has been really a lot on that stage today. So I have been in business for about 20 years. I have been always interested in both the business goals, but also giving back to society. So I have been being part of JCI network. I have co-founded Estonian Startup Leaders Club, Garage 48, and recently an education fund. And there has been just one period in my life that I actually took 5 years off. I only worked on a business, and that was from 2013 to 2018 when we built up Bolt with my brother and a third co-founder. So where did we start it? We started from Tallinn, relatively small city. We came quite fast to Riga as well. And I just today realized when I came with the bus that I have lost my 40% discount from Lux Express, which is for regular customers. So I was coming to Riga that often that basically every week or every 2 weeks. So now I'm visiting once or twice a year only because we have new markets, bigger challenges ahead, and Riga is working already pretty fun for us, or pretty well for us. And thank you all for the recognition and trust. But if you recall, how was the taxi industry just 5 years ago? It was 90% in cash. The quality was unpredictable. You never knew what's going to happen. And there was no rating systems or anything like that. So, and the cars could come in 5 minutes, but could come in 40 or 60 minutes, you never know. So those were the challenges in most of the Baltic states, but throughout Eastern Europe. And that was the challenge we jumped in to tackle and solve. So where we are today, about 6.5 years later, we operate in 36 different markets, 150 plus cities. I have lost the count a bit, so getting to 200 soon. And we have over 30 million passengers. But most importantly, we have 750,000 drivers. I think it's similar range or maybe even a bit more people that live in Riga. What does that mean? So we provide them an opportunity to make money. Some of them do it full-time. Big majority of them actually do it part-time. So we feel that especially in Africa, when in some cities the unemployment for young people is between 20 to 40%, so giving them a simple entry-level job that they could start earning something, that's a good thing. But we don't want to stop there. We are currently thinking of different programs and testing already in some cities how we could educate these people, so that often their education is pretty limited. So yeah, you get a driver's license, you can drive, that's it, but they don't have decent access to education. So we are currently thinking of providing them online courses or even potentially motivation to pass them. So let's say financial literature, setting goals for yourself, and becoming a business, potentially even learning programming or design. So those are the things that we are considering how to even make a bigger impact. So if we can help some part of people to the next level, it's called upward mobility, then there are plenty of other guys who want to become drivers and again use us as a platform to get on with their life. So this is why we see that doing something in large scale actually can have a pretty large scale impact as well. Next, just today I read a blog post about the global unicorns and overall startups. And recently, after the US has had few IPOs, Uber, Lyft, Zoom, few others, currently, based on January, it's actually Asian startups have taken the lead in terms of valuation and being the top startups in the world. It has been very fierce competition between Asia and US. And unfortunately, Europe has only 10% of the overall unicorns currently, but if we take the top 30 global tech companies, then you can guess how many of those top 30 are from Europe. As far as I know, it's only one, and it's Spotify, and it's roughly on place 30. So that's the scale currently what's happening in the world. Europe has a lot of things to do to really get back to the global competition and encourage our young founders to really build something big, don't exit too early on, and really try to make an impact. And that's also what we try to do. We have got several acquisition offers, but we have a site. Our vision is at least 10 or 20 years ahead, and we are not for sale. Of course, building something in Eastern Europe is pretty challenging. So raising money here, I feel it's much, much more complicated than it is for the US or Chinese companies. Even though we get new VC funds and impact investing and all of that, it's still more difficult. So if you go to that game, you should be ready for a marathon. It's not a sprint, it's a long-term business, and you need to really, really work hard and have a great vision to actually accomplish it. So, back to transportation. Where is the potential and why is it still a really interesting business? So, currently, if we look at our cities, an average person is doing about 50 rides per month. So, if you're active, you probably do a bit more. But if you consider babies and elderly people, that's roughly 50 rides. And if you look at the split, then again, it's also about 50-50. Half is done by the public transport, half is done by personal cars. And only a small segment, depending on a city, usually between 3 to 6% is done by on-demand transportation or taxis. And that's what we try to attack. And why is it interesting and why so much money has been invested in the industry? It's more than 70 billion have been invested into ride-hailing companies, is that we truly believe that we have a potential to grow that segment not twice, but actually 4, 6 or maybe 10 times. No one exactly knows, but for sure we can quadruple the market share. And how is that happening? So last 5 years, you all know that private drivers have come to the market next to traditional and full-time taxi drivers. So that has increased the pool a lot, and in most of the cities, the number of taxi rides have been at least grown 3 or 4 times during that years. So we are not taking jobs away from taxi drivers, we are increasing the market and we are taking away rides from private cars. And that's what the cities are actually trying to do. People would use less private cars and more shared transportation. Second pillar or second wave is pooling. So if the apps get into the decent scale in a city that we have enough rides, people going same time, same direction, we can start pooling them. And that again makes the ride 30-40% cheaper, and again more people can afford it, and again we can compete better with the private cars. And finally, when autonomous cars will come, then we are quite sure they will be deployed via the platforms. I'm pretty sure people are not going to buy self-driving car because it doesn't make you much sense. And based on some predictions, some scientists and researchers have said that most probably by 2030, government starts collecting driving licenses away from people. Imagine that. So let's see, very interesting decade ahead. And finally, it's also public transportation. We are very sure you can't fit more cars in the city center during the peak hours. It's already traffic jams are huge. So that's not a solution. So we need to find ways to use micromobility, and also public transportation will be integrated to the platforms so you get a decent ride altogether. A few numbers how we have been doing based on Financial Times, and Bolt has been rated as number 3 fastest growing companies 2 years in a row in Europe, and we have roughly tripled, sorry, not tripled, but grown 10 times for most of the figures. So that's for team, the markets we are in, the customer base, and so on. But it hasn't been an easy ride. If you look at the graph, then first 3-4 years when we started in Riga in 2014, we were growing pretty slowly. It was really, really hard work to figure it out. And actually the fastest growth became from 2016 when we expanded to Africa and turned mostly to private drivers away from traditional taxi companies. So that's when actually we helped to really get the rocket growth. This is the landscape now today. There are 8 to 10 global top platforms that are competing for the same market share. but the regionally it's now quite much in place, and the green box in the middle, that's what we call our home turf, and that's what we are aiming to win. We are already leading in Africa and Eastern Europe, but still the big part of the Western Europe is either closed yet because of Germany, Italy, Spain. The regulation is too much outdated, and platform like us can't operate it there yet because the taxi lobby is that strong and they don't want to have any market opening. And the comparison for Eastern Europe and, for example, Germany or Western Europe, the prices of taxi ride is about 4 times difference. In Eastern Europe, the average ride is 5-6 euros. In Western Europe, is plus 20 euros. And actually, even for the local people living there, taxi is a luxury service. We think it should be a commodity, not a luxury service. And yeah, that's the guys we compete with, the global unicorns with tens of billions of euros in the bank account. How we are different and how can we compete even though we don't have that funding? So we have been always taking about 10% less commission, and that's part of our DNA. As we didn't have so much funding as the Western guys, we needed to invent a company culture that is much more lean and much more cost efficient. We don't have any executives in a company that get really high paid salaries, which are even in the range of something in Silicon Valley. I think most software developers in Silicon Valley makes more money than our company CEO and the top management. So that's just one example. But even though when we go to conferences or stuff like that, we share Airbnb and all the other things. So if it's part of your company culture, you can actually be much more efficient. And why is it important is we can give back those savings to the passengers and drivers. So we take on average 10% less commission, and on a 10 euro ride, here's a great example, passengers get 5% cheaper ride, and at the same time drivers make 5% more. Wouldn't be a great model? I think it's pretty cool, and that's what have been fueling our growth. And with this even a lower commission, we can still build a pretty decent business if you are cost efficient. And next to that, if it's cheaper for both sides, for passenger and driver makes more money, and on top of that, we are green, all our rides since September are CO2 neutral. So what does it mean? We measured our footprint, how much all the cars are driving in Europe, and how big is the CO2 emission, and now every quarter we currently buy CO2 offsets. We know it's the first step and it's not a full solution, but we were the first ride-hailing platform to do that in Europe. We hope others would follow. But we have a clear plan how to get from just offsetting to actually much greener cities. So that means we work hard with different car manufacturers, with cities, with financing and all of that to get more and more electric cars to the streets. And we know that there are markets that use a lot of coal to produce electricity and so on. So we also try to make sure that we get deals that the charging networks are using renewable energy. Besides that, it's also micromobility, electric scooters, and all of the other technologies that actually would help reduce our footprint. So yeah, that's just the first step, and doing that in big scale, we want to inspire other companies to follow and really think about being green. Overall space, what are the opportunities, what company like us could do and what we are considering? We started from ride-hailing, so connecting passengers and drivers and just letting them to operate the transportation very efficiently. Secondly, it's a rental model where we own the assets and we do the whole operations ourselves. It's the scooters, putting them on streets, charging, maintenance, and all of that. That's a business that is developing really, really fast. And if you're in Riga, Tallinn, or Lithuania, you have probably already used our scooters last year. And this year, we already have new models coming up which are much more sustainable. And some of them also already with swappable batteries. So it's a lot of innovation happening in the micromobility space. We also launched food delivery. We know that that's a very crowded space in Western Europe, but there are tons of markets in Eastern Europe and Africa that service is not really well developed yet. So we can use basically synergy from ride-hailing, scooters, and food, so the brand recognition is working really, really well. So one example from last year in Tallinn, we are Estonian company, we have been operating there close to 7 years. And even last summer when we launched scooters, we got first month close to 20,000 new signups, and 30% of them started also using ride-hailing. So in such a saturated home market, we still see that new services bring us new customers, and that's a clear advantage compared to single service companies. And that's why we are doing and then building these services out. And finally, then the MaaS or mobility as a service, finally, we'll do it together with public transportation. We are working with cities to make sure that they have APIs, so we could include public transportation in our offering. So in 5 years' time, you probably open up a Bolt app, you set in a destination wherever you want to go, and you will get the multimodality offering which is clearly mixed between different things. So you can use scooters, car sharing, public transport, everything mixed, and you can choose if you want to go faster. It's probably your private taxi service. If you want to use the cheapest one, it's probably walking, public transportation, electric scooters. All of these kind of choices will be there. So that's the vision. And yeah, food delivery is really cool service also. We get a lot of students actually doing the deliveries. You can even start with walking in a city center. You can use bikes, motorcycles, and whatever is feasible to do a short distance. On average, delivery is usually within 1 or 2 kilometers. So very easy way also for people just to learn what does it mean to work, earn some pocket money, and also customer service, valuable experience. And this year we are going to expand the food delivery to Eastern European markets and to Africa as well. Our team has been growing a lot. We now have over 1,500 people, 30% of them in Estonia, the rest in all the 30 markets. And one important bit of hiring also for the young people is that very often we actually value the attitude much, much more than the experience. We have got tons of CVs from guys who call themselves gurus. They have done something for 20 years, but their experience really sucks. They are not hungry, their eyes are not bright, they are not really up to change the world. But actually these are the people that we want. We have tons of examples where people enter the company as customer support representatives. And last year, I think we had 65 people moving from support to all the other functions around the company. So if you're bright, if you automate your work, if you ask smart questions, why I'm doing that task repeatedly all the time. Some guys have just programmed repetitive tasks themselves in the customer support department and automated their own work. That's what we like, and these people get promoted really fast. So that's the attitude. And we also want to really make sure that people have the path of personal growth as well within the company, so that they would believe our mission, which is making the urban and city transportation as easy as possible and accessible as many people as possible. So if they believe that, they have clearly growth path within the company. And if you're interested, we have about 70 to 100 job opportunities all the time. Check them out if you're a student, just to know what kind of skills and things we need, and you can maybe choose a career path based on that. So last summer I took a bit time off to think what's my impact and what's our company's impact as well, which has been discussed a lot on that stage today. So what is it really? How us as a company can do something cool? And from my side personally as well, I thought that it's 2 or 3 things I can really make an impact. First is, as a company, we can inspire others. So we are the biggest Estonian unicorn, still Estonian company. Many of the others have moved their headquarters away to US, to UK, and so on. We are 100% Estonian company, and we want to show to all the others in the Baltics and elsewhere, you can raise hundreds of millions to companies in Baltics. You can follow that example, and you can tell your investors if you want, they want to flip you to US, you can say that actually Bolt guys are doing it in the Baltics, let's do it as well. Secondly, I'm meeting 1 or 2 new founders every week for lunch, just to understand what they are doing, what things are happening in the society, how can I help them to mentor, to connect them with other guys. And just a few of the examples that I have been investing in the last 1 year as an angel investor. So Printify is fast-growing Latvian company and really proud to back them. MySpot is Estonian place that is helping to find most convenient meeting rooms throughout the city. When you want to do meeting offsites with your team, check it out. They just opened up in Riga. CarGet is enabling car loans for people in Africa where the loans from the banks are in range of 20 to 40% a year. That's crazy. That can be done better, and that's what CarGet is doing in South Africa. Salto is connecting all the European founders to one network to really share the experience and boost each other based on the example what we have done in Estonian Startup Leaders Club. Now Ragnar is trying to do that throughout Europe, and he has already 600 founders on a platform. So if you are a cool founder, join the network and then get experience from the other guys, and also give back to the society, help the others in the network. And finally, 99 Math is Estonian education startup that is really trying to make learning math something fun and also make it as esports or tournament based. And they also build all kinds of analytic tools for the students to really engage and know how the classroom is doing and who is progressing well and who is not that well. So yeah, different variety of startups that are making impact in their different space. So a year ago, we also, me and Taavet from TransferWise, we co-founded the Estonian Education Fund, and we are now investing. It's $1 million philanthropy fund, and for 3 years we plan to invest into 10 to 15 education initiatives to really solve the core problems of Estonian education. So that means teachers are too old, the school management is really outdated, it's more an administration but not leadership, the STEAM things are not really well implemented in schools and so on, and we also have people falling out of the school before they actually graduate gymnasium or 12th grade. So those are the real things we are tackling, and first year we invested into 5 projects, more than 300,000 euros, and we got more than 100 applications or ideas to the fund in the first year. So I think we are also trying to make the education much more open and similar to startups, so bringing more common sense to the really, really traditional industry. And finally, how much of you, or do you actually know what part of the world rich list you are in? If you go to the Life You Can Save website and put in your salary, for example, Estonian or Latvian average salary would put you in the 10% of the most wealthiest people in the world. You might think that, okay, how I'm doing, but if you know these kind of figures, then you are doing pretty well. So that means that thinking of the others and seeing what we can do to help the other countries and the other people in much more poor societies, we have lots of ways to improve that. So yeah, those are the 2 books, for example. The first one, 80,000 hours. That's a career length of one average person. So if you are a student today and you are thinking, what should you do with your career and how you can make the biggest impact, read that book. It gives you tons of ideas how to validate it. And it even recommends that most people choose their careers pretty randomly. So my daughter was just finishing high school, and friends of her, they picked the university degrees or whatever they will study pretty randomly. So where they get in, they didn't have a clear like a passion or a way what they want to do. So this book definitely helps you to figure out which is the biggest impact. And it even recommends that it would make sense to invest 1% of your career time to actually really calculate and find the way where you can make biggest impact. So that's for students. But for all the other people, the red book, The Life You Can Save, it recommends that you calculate where do you stand in the world's rich list. I bet that most of you are in the top 10, maybe even in top 5% range. And it would probably won't change your life much if you would donate 10% of your income to the really effective charities. And that's another thing. So if we think of overall donating somewhere, we do it mostly based on the passion. But if you would go to the bank and ask that, I want to choose a pension fund or an investment fund, and the bank would tell you that, yeah, choose it based on your passion. What would you think? But that's what's happening in the donation and charity industry. Most decisions are based on your passion and actually not based on data and really looking at the numbers, which charities actually make more impact. So if you read the second book, it would pretty clearly give you a very good insight how to measure the charities and where do you even, if you invest 1, 10 or 100 euros, where would you actually get the biggest impact? Based on Estonian example, only every fourth person, or actually 27% of population, do any donations, and the average donation is, guess what, 3 euros a month. That's a cup of coffee. I think we can all do better. So whatever your income is, you can actually invest better if you think. So yeah, that will be very short-lived. That's what I'm currently working with, trying to figure out how we can make the biggest impact as a company and what I can do the biggest impact as a person. So I hope that if we have any questions, maybe we can take a few questions as well. We have a few minutes left. Yeah, shout.
Yep. Let me assist.
Hello? Okay. So I have a question. I want your opinion on how far do you think we are from self-driving taxis and this type of thing?
That's a cool question. So I think 2 years ago, everyone was pretty optimistic that by 2020 we should have self-driving cars on the street. Last year, some predictions started moving and saying that we need another 3 or 5 years. So to be honest, I don't know very well, but I'm guessing that it's going to take 5, but probably 7 to 12 years to actually see self-driving taxis also here in Riga. So maybe there are some cities in US, it will become to the market earlier, but globally and commercially, actually scalable rollout will take more time than we currently expect. But yeah, probably within this decade, you'll see self-driving cars for sure.
Thank you.
Where's that catch box when we need it?
Regarding the last question, the biggest problem in self-driving cars, in my opinion, is the ethical side, which is the hardest thing to solve. Like, if the car is about to hit a child or to kill the owner, then what's going to happen? My question to you is, how is the remote culture in your company? And yeah, can you elaborate? Are you doing anything regarding having more remote culture, remote employees, or is that something that's not so important?
I'm not sure I heard you very well. Can you rephrase with one sentence?
Remote work.
Remote work?
Yes.
Okay. We are actually quite flexible in that sense, so that people can work from home, or as we have 30, I think last time I saw we had 67 rental agreements for offices. So that's already pretty remote considering the whole company and headquarters and all of that. So we really need to work a lot to get people aligned for the company goals and all of that. We try to use all hands meetings every 2 weeks and pretty good intranet and all of that. So that is a challenge really to get remote workers really to understand what's the company goals and culture. But in general, we are very flexible and we support that a lot. So yeah, that's how we see it. And it's definitely a trend. So we have, I think, the best iOS developer we had. He has been traveling around the world for last years and working in very remote positions. So we have good examples and we have bad examples where some people are not performing very well. So we try to analyze that and make sure that it actually works.
Okay, one last question, right?
Yeah, sure. Let's do a last one quickly.
I'm going to have 2 short questions.
Okay.
What's beyond food and scooters for Bolt next? And which year you think you're going to have 50% of electric cars in your fleet? Not your fleet, but fleet that you're operating on.
Yeah, what we do besides that, we are looking for financial services and deliveries or different kind of things. So yeah, this is what we are researching. Maybe we can announce something this year. Let's see. Electric, was it electric cars or self-driving cars?
Electric.
Electric, I'm guessing 2025 maybe. Let's see. It's we have done some predictions, but it a lot depends also of the city regulations. If cities are start to push it faster, the transition will happen faster. But currently, it's still more expensive to really own the electric car, and then economically, what we see calculations, it's still a bit more expensive than gasoline cars.
And one challenging question: you beating Volt in the new vertical? You think?
Volt in food delivery. For longer term, that's our goal for sure. Currently, they are market leaders in all the markets we operate, so we need hard work to beat them. That's the goal. Thank you. I think time is up, so really glad to be here. Thank you.